Let's compare the F-150 XLT to the Ram 1500 Bighorn and finally the Chevy Silverado RST. These are all pretty much the same price, so we'll see who makes the best truck. Before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Larich Miller Dodge Ram here in Provo, the Ford here in Provo, and then the Chevy here in Provo for giving me some time with all of the trucks. Link to all their inventories in the description down below. Let's get into it. Powering the Ram is a twin-turbo 3-liter inline-6 that goes through an 8-speed. Fuel economy is 17 around town, 24 on the highway. Power outputs are 420 horsepower, 469 pound-feet of torque. Powering the Ford is a turbo 2.7-liter V6 that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy 18 around town, 23 on the highway. Power outputs 325 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque. Powering the Chevy is a turbo 2.7-liter 4-cylinder that goes through an 8-speed. Fuel economy 17 around town, 20 on the highway. Power outputs 310 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque. Before we move forward with this review, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So quickly going over features on the front end, you can see fog lights on the Ram, fog lights on the Ford, and fog lights on the Chevy, so that all matches. There's obviously some style differences. The Chevy's the boxiest. The Ford, I'd say it's in second place, and the Ram is in the last place with boxiness. It's the most rounded off. Doesn't mean it looks bad, but yeah, features pretty similar on the front end. Now when it comes to wheel design, the Ram looks the most basic out of the bunch. The Ford, you can see the wheels are completely blacked out. And then with the Chevy, they're blacked out as well. Now something to note, the Chevy and the Ford both have all-terrain tires. All three of the trucks have independent front suspension. There's of course lots of badging on all of the trucks. You can see the mirrors, the difference there. Very similar on the Ford and the Chevy actually with the shape versus the Ram's more rounded off. Now the Ram has coil suspension in the back. The Ford still uses traditional leaf springs, and if we pop over to the Silverado, it also uses traditional leaf springs as well. Ram does not have any bed liner, and there is nothing really happening here in the bed, but tailgate's light, and here's a view of the back of the Ram, and then you guys can see the side profile. You got nice fender flares and everything. Now popping over to the Ford, similar to the Ram in terms of not a lot happening, but we do have LED bed lights, so that's something, and we actually have an outlet. And we actually have a bed step, so quite a bit more happening. Tailgate's a little bit heavier because of that bed step. Cool looking back end, no fender flares with the Ford. And then with the Silverado, it's got the most. So you got lights, you got outlet, you've got bed liner, you've got the multi-function, or multi-pro tailgate rather, multi-functions Ram. Tailgate's probably about as heavy as the Ford's, roughly. You've got the bumper steps there, again boxiest with the design, but that's the exteriors. Now when it comes to the passenger cabin, they're all pretty similar in terms of space, so quick look at these Silverado, cloth seats and everything, but you got like a flat loading floor, you got some underseat storage, you've got some vents, outlets, and all of that. You can see with the Ford, material use is a little bit different, but again, very similar amount of space, similar features with the vents, charging ports and all that, underseat storage as well. It's almost like they compete against each other. And then finally taking a look at the Ram, you can see similar setup, similar space. The Ram does have ice buckets, so that's a little bit of a difference. Still have underseat storage, but that's all for the rear area. So before we hop into the Silverado, 1755 is the payload capacity, and you do have some nice soft touch trim here with this RST package. Getting in is pretty easy with the grab handle. Close that. No 2-speed transfer case, just 4-wheel high and auto. And quick features, we've got big digital gauge cluster with the Chevy. We've got a bunch of practical controls in the steering wheel, radio controls in the back. With the backup, I have to have my seatbelt buckled with the camera system. Let me see if I can do a trick here. So if you change the drive modes, sometimes it tricks the computer. I hate you, Chevy. Anyways, we'll just do it manually here. So there is a camera system with this. See, just regular backup camera. Bunch of physical controls down below. Important stuff, heated seats, dual zone climate, trailer brake controls from the factory. With this configuration, bench seat in the center. No power sliding rear window, no sunroof. Now with the Ford 1531 for the payload capacity with this bad boy. And again, similarly, nice, it's kind of like soft touch trim there. This does have side steps, so that makes getting in a little bit easier. And guess what? Just like the Silverado, digital gauge cluster. Lots of practical, hello camera, let's focus. Practical controls on the steering wheel. Less tyrannical, it lets you go into reverse whenever you want. You don't have to have your seatbelt buckled. Come on, Chevy, what you thinking? Anyways, big infotainment system. This does have a 2-speed transfer case. Also has some drive modes. Same features, pretty much. Heated seats, dual zone climate. You do not have a heated steering wheel, but you got a bunch of storage here in the center. So no seat, just traditional center console with the Ford. It does have a power sliding rear window, that little button right there. No sunroof. Finally, payload on the Ram is 1755, and I'd say that this interior is definitely the tightest feeling with it. It does have some plastic controls. By the way, power folding mirrors are just pretty cool. I like these seats. Anyways, getting into the Ram, you do have to step up a bit. Most analog gauge cluster out of the bunch, so that's something to note. And close that. Bunch of practical controls. You can see adaptive cruise control and all of that. Also not tyrannical like the Chevy, but no bird's eye view like the Ford. But it does have a heated steering wheel, rather, unlike the Ford. Single zone climate in the Ram. Say parking sensors. Now, something that the Ram has over the other two is 2-speed transfer case plus 4-wheel auto. The other two offer either or. This, it's got both. And it definitely has the best center console out of the bunch. This slides backwards and forwards. You've got the double glove box, power sliding rear window. So with this, you basically trade a bird's eye view with the camera for 4-wheel auto and a heated steering wheel that the Ford doesn't have. Now, when it comes to pricing, they're all about $59, $60K for the MSRP, and so it's kind of like, do you want bedliner? Do you want a bird's eye view with a camera? Do you want a heated steering wheel, 4-wheel auto and 4-wheel low? Pick your choice. Let's take them out and drive them. So, Ford first, and then we'll go, I don't know, I'll decide when I get back. Now, this is probably a pretty important comparison, right? Which American truck should you get? So, starting out with the Ford, let's talk about the engine. That's going to be a big point of comparison. So, the 2.7 is a good engine. It's got good torque, gets good fuel economy. And if you guys want me to do a more in-depth comparison between the Ford 2.7 and the Chevy 2.7, let me know. I can always do that. I got plenty of time for reviews. It's kind of what I do for a living. Yeah, the torque's impressive. The torque is indeed impressive. Smooth overall. I think they've done a great job with this whole setup. And we'll get an acceleration here. Not a lot of top end on this engine, but again, the torque, the low end is pretty strong. So the Ford has comfortable suspension. It's got a pretty strong powertrain for a more entry-level powertrain, and these are kind of like, they're not quite true entry-level. They're kind of mid with the truck's mid-trim in a way. Yeah, the truck, the Ford drives very, very car-like. It's easy to drive. It's lightweight feeling. Overall, nice truck. So, Silverado with the 2.7 4-cylinder. Definitely sounds quite a bit buzzier compared to the Ford's V6. Same displacement, 2 less cylinders. Feels less torquey somehow. It has more torque on paper, but as they say, there's no replacement for cylinders. More cylinders equals better everything. I don't know. I'll figure out something catchy. Don't you worry. Give me some time. Man, this thing's got some torque, though. It's gotta go higher up in the RPMs, though. And again, it just sounds buzzier. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. I do want to emphasize that. It's a nice ride overall. It's just a little bit different. I will say the interior in this is, you know, it's got some nice points. It's probably the most basic feeling out of the, I mean, actually the Ford, this and the Ford are tied probably for feeling the most basic out of the, oh man, we got so many cars. But you guys get what I'm saying there. And this is definitely the most tyrannical out of the bunch. I hate, buckle your seatbelt to put it into gear. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna always have my seat buckled when I drive, but like I don't want a car. It's just like the active braking stuff. It's like, I'll know when to brake. I'll put my seatbelt on. You don't need to tell me to put my seatbelt on. I'll do it. You know, it kind of sounds like a Chipotle bathroom a little bit, but you know, there's some cool engines you can get in the Silverado. You can get a diesel, you can get a 5.3 V8, you can get a 6.2 V8, so I won't give them too hard of a time. But nice ride, comfortable. It drives more truck-like than the Ford. It feels it's a bit heavier. It still handles pretty well, but yeah, not quite as lightweight feeling as the Ford. And the engine does feel somewhat lethargic, but yeah, it's a 4-cylinder and a full size. What do you expect? Oh man, this is the most masculine thing you can ever do. Twist a dial in a full-size pickup truck. So, I guess the Chevy had soft touch up here, the Ram doesn't. I still like, the Ram's interior just feels the tightest. Seats are the most comfortable out of the bunch too. Suspension, it helps to have coil springs. Yeah, this ride's the best. And this engine is the smoothest by far. I was expecting that because it's an inline 6. It's really hard to beat an inline 6 when it comes to smooth acceleration. You either got to go V8 or you got to do lots of fine tuning on a V6, but you're really just never going to be able to have a V6 as smooth as an inline 6. Yeah, it's really nice. I'd say this is in between the Ford and the Chevy in terms of how car-like it feels. Man, I'm liking the Ram the most out of this comparison. And I think that, you know, Ram's lowered their prices on their vehicles, and I think it's helped out. Because, you know, if I did this comparison and they were closer in price, it wouldn't be as, whoa, it has a lot more power than you think it would have. Wow. Man, as long as I don't send a cylinder to the moon, that thing's pretty impressive. So, yeah, with Ram kind of fixing their prices, it makes the truck a lot more appealing. That drives so nice. So, I still think no bedliner is unforgivable. Ford and Ram, come on, stop doing it. Stop letting Chevy win the bedliner game. But aside from that, the Ford and, well, I mean, okay, take bedliner out of the equation. Ford and Ram have the most features. Chevy actually has the least amount of features. I think the Ram's the most balanced. Heated seats, heated steering wheel, solid four-wheel drive system because it has low and auto, and it has a nice powertrain. Yeah, I think Ram wins this comparison. Let me know which one you think wins, but I think the Ram just seems the most balanced, and especially since they're all about the same amount of money. That's my 2 cents for what it's worth.